Eden. And we're going to dive into some scripture that's related to that. And yeah, we're going to go from there. So here we go. Finally, we're getting our chance to finish season 1 of The Chosen, diving into a few more episodes or a few more videos from episode 8 of season 1, the finale, which is an amazing episode. So good looking back on it and checking out these old things here. This scene in particular has to do with Eden and her connection to another biblical character from the Old Testament, Hagar. There's such a cool connection here that I want to talk about. So let's jump in, watch this scene, and then jump into scripture to talk all about it. Here we go.
You will know in time. I can't make everything about this easier for you.
That wouldn't be our people's way.
No, it has not been. Nor will it continue to be. But I see you. You understand? I know it is not easy to be at home when your husband is out doing all of this.
So we won't go into the whole scene here, but just seeing that moment with Jesus and Eden is one of my favorite core moments of The Chosen period, where Jesus understands the circumstance that he's putting Eden into. This is something that not a lot of other Bible shows or movies or anything would ever get into. They would never acknowledge the wife's struggle going through this whole process. They would just acknowledge that Peter is amazing and he's done all these things, right? But they wouldn't acknowledge Eden in this way, right? Peter's wife. So I loved this moment in The Chosen because, first of all, it resonated with my wife. At the time that we were watching this, she was a pastor's wife, right? And so she felt this to the core of her being. Like I need Jesus to see me too. It's not just about my husband. It's not just about what he's doing, but it's about what I'm doing too. And so she felt that to the core of her being, and it really, really had an impact on her. But the one thing that I thought about when I see this is the I see you. And that is a direct quote almost from Genesis chapter 21. Now, this talks about Hagar. And of course, we know that Hagar is the servant of Sarai and Abram, who then becomes pregnant and has a son named Ishmael, who becomes Abraham's first actual son, right? Now, there's an issue later on where Sarah gets really, really, really jealous of Hagar after she has her own child, Isaac, and she wants Hagar gone. And so that's what they do. They kind of get everything together and they kick Hagar out. So let's read this, and I want to talk through this and how God sees Hagar here as well. So this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 8. When Isaac grew up and was about to be weaned, Abraham prepared a huge feast to celebrate the occasion. But Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and her Egyptian servant Hagar making fun of her son Isaac. So Hagar, obviously not the kindest person. So she turned to Abraham and demanded, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son. He is not going to share the inheritance with my son, Isaac. I won't have it." This upset Abraham very much because Ishmael was his son, not only his son, but his first son. But God told Abraham, "Do not be upset over the boy and your servant. Do whatever Sarah tells you, for Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted." So that kind of gives us more clarity on where God is counting the firstborn to be. Now we see this played out a lot in scripture, right? When it comes to Jacob, right? Jacob steals the firstborn right as well. And so we see that played out over and over again, the second kind of overcoming the first in a lot of ways. And so we see that here, where Isaac is going to be the one who the descendants are counted towards for Abraham. But I will also make a nation of the descendants of Hagar's son, because he is your son too. So Abraham got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders. Then he sent her away with their son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she put the boy in the shade of a bush. Then she went and sat down by herself about 100 yards away. "I don't want to watch the boy die," she said, and she burst into tears. But God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, "Hagar, what's wrong? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make a great nation from his descendants. Then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well of water. She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy as he grew up in the wilderness. He became a skillful archer, and he settled in the wilderness of Paran. His mother arranged for him to marry a woman of the land of Egypt. So we see here as well we see basically that Hagar here is in the wilderness, and we see as she is stuck in this place of like, how do I get through this, right? I have no water. I have no hope of survival. And she doesn't know what to do, to the point that she even tells God, she's like, how do I get through this? Like, what am I supposed to do here? And there's an angel that comes, and then they're able to be saved through this moment. Then if we go to, let me get here real fast. Let me go past. Go back. Sorry, should have had this up ahead of time. Yeah. Then we see in Genesis chapter 16, verse 13, we see Hagar say this. So God has basically saved Hagar and Ishmael, and during or before that time, whenever she was pregnant with Ishmael, she has this revelation, right, where God. Here, let me restart this section. I'm trying to get my mind straight, and my brain is just total mush today. Sorry. Let me go through this again. Yep. So before this point in chapter 16 of Genesis, we see where Hagar gets this reliance or trust on God from. Now, later on when she's about to die, there's this instance of like, God, just kill me, because I'm done with this. I've had too much. I have too much to bear. Just kill me. But here in chapter 16, she says, an angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all of his relatives. Therefore, after Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord, who had spoken to her, she said, you are the God who sees me. She also said, have I truly seen the one who sees me? So that well was named Bir Lahai Roy, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So here we're seeing as there's almost a mirroring of these two stories, right? We see that there's a well involved. We see that Hagar's in distress, and God comes and he saves her in those moments. So she starts referring to God as the one who sees her, the one who sees me. And so in this instance with the chosen, we're seeing a very similar thing with Jesus and Eden, where Eden is in distress. Her mother is sick. Her husband is going off on some wild goose chase with this guy that she understands is like a good guy, and he's obviously most likely the Messiah, and all these things are happening. But she still doesn't have peace within herself. And of course, she has a million plates that she's trying to juggle back at home. And so Jesus here is giving her clarity and giving her comfort in the fact that she's going to be taken care of. So Jesus is saying, I see you. Just like he told Nathanael, I saw you under the fig tree, right? This is a different type of seeing, but he's telling Eden here, I see you, just as he told Hagar. Hagar knew that God loved her, and he comforted her in times of distress. And so the same thing is happening with Eden here, where she's being taken care of, even in the midst of her distress, even in the midst of her volatility and the chaos of life. It's giving her that moment of peace and clarity. And of course, then after this moment, Jesus goes in and he heals her mom and makes sure that everything is set so that Simon can travel with him and continue to do the mission that he's asked him to do. I just think this is a really beautiful scene. I love this moment from season 1, and there's a lot of things that can be gleaned for sure. So, yeah. Man, my brain just exploded on that one. So, yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, my brain is exploding. I want to do one more section here, and then we'll get off for tonight. I didn't get that. Timothy,